Hi, Internet viewers. This is Frank Rauscher again. The last video, we rounded the body, and we got it pretty much symmetrical about the center line, just in the body area here. Now, what I'm going to try to do on this video is we're going to concentrate on the head to try to get the beak out, and then we'll move back and we'll put the eyes in, and I'll show you how to do that, and then we'll keep on trying to develop the head completely. So if you will bear with me, I will move the camera down like I usually do, and I will show you how to complete the rest of the wren's head. Okay, so we're working on that today. Bear with me a second. Okay, we're back again. And what I want to make sure that you've done from what we left off at, we've got a center line, which we established before, one for the body. And then what I want you to do is get that center line about midway between the width of the material you have there. You put a dot, and then I asked you to come back so far, and I think it was like 3/8 across here where you have that wedge, and put another dot, and then run your center line up, and that establishes the center line through the area where the beak has to be developed, as well as the center line of the head, and everything gets developed from there. And the other thing I wanted to state too is the width of the head from the center out to what I call the cheek area out here, which is from here out, has to have at least to this point out here, not at the top here, but down here, that you have to have 7/16. So that is one important thing. So you want to measure 7/16, and I'm measuring right now. When I'm looking straight down on this, I'm about a 1/2 inch. So I have a 1/2 inch on this side, and I have plenty on this side, so that's not the problem. So if you want, you can, at this point back here with that center line, you can measure out 7/16, and I'm going to do that right here and put 7/16, which is right on the edge right here. And this side here will be 7/16, and that's right here. Now you're saying, okay, how far back do you have to be to mark at 7/16? I'm going to give you a rough number, okay? And this is not, I'm going to do some what I call lay down dimension, which is laying it down on the piece rather than me trying to do, it's off the center line or something like that, you know, like parallel to this table. I'm going to give you just a lay down dimension. So if you measured from the tip of the beak up with the ruler down, it would be about 1.25 inches. So from the tip back 1.25 inches. Then what I'm going to ask you to do is put a dot and measure out 7/16 this side and 7/16 to this side. Now at this point, what we're trying to do is create this outer cheek area here, which is actually down below here and not at the top. If you notice, there's an inner size for the head, which is 1/4 inch out, and we will establish that too. But just for now, I'm going to come in and just put like this arc just back here, just like this. And it's on the edge, so I'm really running the edge on this side. This side, it's coming in like this. So it's 7/16 out from the center this way and that way. And that is basically the width of the head. But what I do is it could go out and get a little wider as it goes back, and that's what we're trying to do. But at least up to this point, it's measuring 1.25 inches back. We're about at that point, and then the width could get a little wider as it comes back. But this is just to give you some framework of how much you need to take off and where. The other important thing that we have is I have a dimension from the tip of the beak back to the what would be where the start of the head is. The length of that beak is 9/16, but that is looking straight down on it. And if you're trying to do a lay down dimension, and what I mean by that is lay it down on the wood, I'm going to ask you to measure and put a dot from the tip of the beak back on that line of 5/8. In true reality, this 9/16 is the number, but because this is sloping, I'm giving you a fatter dimension. So from here to here on a lay down dimension, that means laying the ruler straight down, you come in and you, at 5/8 in, you put a dot. Now, the other thing we have to establish also is we have to get what I refer to as a beak line that comes through here. And everything is built off of this beak line. So we're going to come in, and for the width of the material you have for the beak, and a lot of times I leave more material than we need when I cut out a blank. So what I'm going to ask you to do is go from the top to the bottom, find the midpoint, and then put a dot there, okay? And that'll establish that point as the front of the beak. Now, when we come back, what I want to try to establish is this line of action. And you're saying, where would that go? So here's what we have that I have to concern myself with. We need, let's see where that is. Here it is here. This center line that's going through the beak, and it's this one right here. From here down to here, I put a dimension in here from, this is the beak line, which I should make it heavier so you can see it. From here down to what would be the beak line is 1/8 of an inch. So this beak thickness from here to here is got to at least be, you got to have 1/8 of an inch material. So what I'm saying to you is we could come back and measure back further on that beak, because the overall beak length is 11/16. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to hold the ruler out like this, and I'm trying to parallel this center line, which we had established, and I'm going to measure with this ruler running the same as the center line. I'm going to measure roughly, we'll say 3/4 of an inch, and I will put a dot on that line right there. Okay, or I should say a dot. Sorry about that. I'm putting a dot 3/4 of an inch back from here to here. That could be like a lay down, really. You could actually lay it down. Let's do it simple. So from just laying the ruler down from the tip of the beak back 3/4, I'm going to ask you to put a dot. And that dot should have at least 1/8 of an inch below it, right in this area right here, between here and here. So you need that. You need that for the beak, because the beak is 1/8 of an inch below the center line, or the beak line, as I call it. So follow me on this. The actual length of the beak down here is 5/8. So I'm going to come back about 1/8 of an inch from that mark. And here's what I'm going to, well, I'm sorry, excuse me. We have a dot. So we have a dot here and a dot here. So we are, just to go over this again one more time, it's 3/4 of an inch on a lay down dimension from the tip back 3/4. And at where you want to put this dot is at least 1/8 of an inch between here and the bottom edge. You need that much material. So, but the actual length of the beak where it touches the body on a slight arc is going to be slightly different. So I'm going to run a line between that dot and this dot. Once I know I have 1/8 of an inch below it in material, that is where you want to spot that one. Then I draw a straight line all the way back, and you can use the ruler between to lay it down and draw that back, okay? Once you got that line in, we want to come around to the front, and you want to get some crosshairs here because you have this center line coming across. You want to drop that down, and then you want to also draw that center line through the whole thing like you're slicing it. And one way to accomplish that, if you get your ruler and you lay it right on the center line at the top and look at it straight in, that should be on the edge. From the top, this edge, all the way on around and down, should be running along that ruler's edge when you look in, straight in, okay? Hope this camera setup that you could see that, okay? So you have this center line going right through. You have this line coming across. Now you're going to have a crosshair here where you got it this way, and it's got to be 90 degrees. And one way, you can check that in a minute, but when I look down here, I'm going to guesstimate to make sure that this line comes over at the right spot. So I'm going to eyeball it so that this line is going straight across. Then I'm going to draw from this point to that dot a straight line. And again, I need to have at least 1/8 of an inch down of material here, okay? Just like I did on this side. I needed at least 1/8 of an inch below that dot. Same way on this side, at least 1/8 of an inch down. So once you establish these crosshairs, then I want you to get your ruler and lay this and look straight in, and your inch mark, this here, should be in line with the line going through the top of the head. And as you're looking in, your line on this side and this side is running across the top of the ruler, and that makes it perpendicular, and that's what you need. You need this line coming across perpendicular to this line. That's really what I'm trying to get at. I need, when you're looking straight in, a 90 degree between this quadrant or this quadrant or this quadrant, just to make everything say that we're looking squared up, okay? Even though it's round surfaces and everything else. It's a little tedious, but that's the ideal thing to do. Now, once we have these lines in place, we have the center line going through and this beak line going through, we're able to build and measure off of that. So here we go. I'm going to now establish this dimension of 5/8 back And what I'm actually going to do, that is the true dimension, but for your purposes, you can lay your ruler down and you can measure 5/8. I'm sorry, 3/4. I'll get this right. And I'm sorry about giving you all kinds of crazy dimensions here. I want you to measure from the front of the beak back and put a dot at the 3/4 inch mark. Okay, so from here to here, it's 3/4. And up here, you got 5/8. And that was on a lay down dimension from here to here. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come forward like on almost a 45 degree, not quite, angle. I'm going to turn that corner that's squared up in here, and that's this corner right here, and I'm going to roll that down to that 3/4 inch mark back there. Okay, and then I'm going to come over on this side, and I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to come out. I'm going to come back. And I'm rolling that. So this is what the top of the beak is going to look like. It's coming out on a slight angle, almost a 45, not quite, and the same way over here. Now, on the bottom, this goes back a little further. It's the actual number is 11/16. I'm going to take you back a little bit more. I'm going to take you back to about 13/16. So I'm going to come out of here. And remember I said I needed at least 1/8 of an inch below of material. So I'm going to come back and turn 1/8 of an inch down and come back 1/8 of an inch back. So that's the bottom of the beak. Now, here's what I want to do. From this point that we started to here, there is a straight line going through, but the beak itself is slightly arced. So here's what we're going to do. I'm going to come from this 3/4 inch mark, come back. I'm going to rise up off of that line, and then I'm going to come back onto the line before I get to the end. Okay, so it's a real slight arc. All right. Now, the bottom, the top of the beak also has the arc, and it has more material up here. This beak is thicker on the top. So what I'm going to do is I'm coming off of the end here a little bit, and I'm going to slope this back like this. And notice up, let's see, it's 1/8 of an inch. So from here up, it's 1/8 of an inch, and then it slopes down. The bottom of the beak, which I dropped from here down 1/8 of an inch, I'm going to start from right at the point, and that's the beak line where everything met out here. I'm going to come off of that, and I'm going to slope a line back right to here, which is that one that went down 1/8 of an inch back and down. So that is the actual shape of the beak that we need to get to, okay? So I'm going to go to the other side, and we said, again, we came back, we measured 3/4 of an inch, and then I said we want to go down 1/8 and back 1/8. and I'll put a dot right there, this beak swings back like this, okay? And from this to here, we aren't going to stay on a straight line. We're going to just start moving off of it and go up a little bit, but we're coming back on that point. Okay, so it's a little slight bend. And then we're going to arc from here and we want to just be 1/8 of an inch up from this line right here. So this is arcing also. And then this bottom one starts right at the tip and comes straight back on an arc like that. So this sort of comes over and has a little more thickness on the top. This one's coming straight off the point, that midpoint, and comes back. So you have 1/8 of an inch down and back to that point, and you have 1/8 of an inch up from that beak line up to here, which would give you just a little bit of space. So once we get that all marked out, now what I'm going to do is, the first thing is I'm going to reduce the material on the top here. And I want to take this down using this little V in here as my boundary. I don't want to go into that, but I want to take all of the material that's on top of this beak line, not the beak itself, but the outside, and the same way on the bottom. And on the bottom, I'm going to give you some limits here too. From here back, I want you to measure 3/8 of an inch. And you may want to go over this again and again. And if I'm a little confusing, I don't mean to be, but it is a little tedious. So I came back from the tip of the beak. This is on the bottom now. And I'm coming back, measuring straight back 3/8. And from that point, I'm just going to put like a little V in here coming back this way so you can see it. Okay. Now, I'm going to take both the top and the bottom down. Like I said, if I look at this and I put my fingers on either side, I'm trying to reduce the material above the beak and below the beak, so it ends up looking like that when we get done. So let me show you how I do that, okay? Just wanted to stop the video at this point because I just give you the measurements to get the beak out, and then what I'll do is I'll take you on the next video to show you how to grind the material away so you can do that and shape the beak. So I'm just trying to, the length is, I don't want to go too long, so I'm cutting this off. I hope you can get something out of this video as well. And then what I'll do is I'll continue on to the next video. And if you did get something out of it, I would ask you to give me a thumbs up. And if you could subscribe to my channel, I'd appreciate that greatly too. So I'll see you on the next video, and we will really start shaping the beak up. Thank you.